the economy, it's all about the economy, stupid, I don't think you said that anyway. It is all about the economy, that really does matter. You'll have seen very recently the growth figures for the UK downgraded over the last few months. From April to June, we were expecting 0.2% GDP growth. That's now been downgraded to 0.1% GDP growth. And in the quarter before that, it was only 0.5% GDP growth. This is significantly lower than we've been used to over the previous 10 years, and that will make an impact on what the economy can afford to do. Our own forecasters are still looking at what this means, but in our forecast we produced in August, we were suspecting that for 2011 we would only see about 1.3% growth across the UK, down from 1.7%. So we're not out of the woods yet, and some of the indicators are going in the wrong direction. So I think our last forecast said that it was a period of soft economic activity. I wouldn't want to predict what our next one said, but I suspect it's going to be a little bit more troublesome than that. So where's growth going to come from? Well, consumer spending is one of the big areas that we've relied on in the past. That is definitely going to be constrained for perhaps long-term future actions, inflation kicks in. Government spending, definitely constrained. I'm sure you're already beginning to feel the effects of that. That's definitely going to continue. I think it's important that we continue with what the government's been doing on deficit reduction, because if we can't get that right, then I think we're in bigger problems than we've got at the moment. Tourism actually is another area where we can grow our economy for the future, a little bit maybe. The Olympics, the Jubilee and various other things that are coming up hopefully will put a few extra pounds into the pockets in the UK. I've been recently to Stanford and Harvard on various holidays and noticed what those universities are doing in terms of attracting tourists. Maybe there's some value in terms of the Oxford to Cambridge and others thinking about that as a way of bringing in some extra money, but it's not going to be a huge amount extra. The two big areas where we want to see the economy growing are in business investments and in exports or import substitution. Those are the two big areas where we need to get growth. And I think the university sector has a lot to offer in those areas, working with business collaboratively, getting partnerships going, and helping to transform what we do in terms of research and innovation within the business community. Growth is also going to come from the unexpected areas. My favourite one at the moment was looking at GSK's annual report recently, and noticed in there that they had 20% growth in sales of Horlicks in India in 2010, and that added something like 250 million to their baseline profits. So there are going to be some strange areas where we do get growth. I think fundamentally one of the things we really need to do is to make sure we turn more of our world-class research into commercial opportunities and economic impact, and that's where we certainly have a role to play. So you see the government's had a big focus on growth. There was a growth review that came out with the budget. That was part one. Part two is coming out in the autumn statement at the end of November. If we're fair to the government, I'd say they've actually done quite a good job in terms of progressing or implementing the 180 odd actions they had in phase one of the growth review. Whether any of those would have a really immediate impact, a little bit unsure. I think some of them are much more longer term, but there is some good things around advanced manufacturing, setting up the technology innovation centres, etc. We've put our emphasis very much on boosting export performance, to foster growth, focusing on some of the big growth markets of the world. Brazil, Russia, China, India, but also Mexico, Korea, Turkey, Indonesia. I know that a lot of UK universities do have links already with many of those countries, so if you have links with them, maybe you could help businesses tap into some of those markets as well. We want to realise pent-up demand for domestic investment as well, and I think you'll see we put our growth paper out. There's a lot of emphasis in there on infrastructure renewal. That's one of the big areas where we think there is potential for further activity in the UK, which will get the economy going. And we want to improve more generally the prospects for growing firms in the UK, so tackling all the challenges that they face in terms of skills, access to knowledge, taxation, regulation, etc., to try and turn things around. One thing that we felt was missing in phase one of the growth review, though, was the focus on productivity and innovation. So I think what we really welcomed is the BIS's determination to press ahead and produce a research and innovation strategy this autumn as a parallel track to the growth review, and that's being led by David Willits. Ideally, I think we'd like to have seen it within the growth review rather than being It's tapped on the side, but at least it's there, and hopefully it will make an impact. Now, I'm involved in that work. I sit on an external steering group for the research and innovation strategy in BIS. I'm the only external player there. The others are the likes of Nesta, Design Council, TSB, PEFG, so all sort of government funded one way or another. So I'm a sort of lone voice putting in what we think should happen from a business perspective. I'm very happy to pick up views from you at the end. I think we're having a discussion session at the end of other things that we should feed in. But let me just run through the sort of things that I've been telling them so far. First of all, they showed us a nice copy of the Research and Innovation Strategy draft that they've written so far. It was exactly what you'd expect them to write. It was lovely, very nice to read. It told you all the sorts of things the government's doing in terms of where it puts its money. Marvellous. And then John Dodds, who was leading the discussion, went around the table and said, well, what do you think of this then? And started with me, and I thought, well, I'm going to be chucked out, because the first thing I said was, this is lovely. It's exactly what I expected to say. Now rip it up and start again. And I was trying to be purposely controversial, because I think things have changed. I think we're in a completely different economic situation than we were in a few years ago when we were having things like the Drayson Review, the Sainsbury Review. I think there has to be a different focus now for the research and innovation strategy. It has to come from a perspective of growth. It has to come from a perspective of business, government working with business, working with universities to generate economic growth in the UK. That doesn't mean abandoning blue skies research and anything like that. That's fantastic. We need to do that. But where we can get economic growth, where we can get impact, that has to be the focus, because we're not going to turn the economy around. What I've said to them is that we have to continue investing to maintain the standards we have already as a world leader in R&D and innovation. And that means ensuring the measures that are put in the strategy we do continue with are internationally competitive. So we've welcomed very much things like the R&D tax credit, although we think there could be improvements made around there, because it doesn't perhaps offer the percentage of reduction that business really wants when offsetting the value of its R&D. We've welcomed the introduction of the patent box as well. Again, it's not quite as competitive as we really want, and it only affects patents, not wider IP. We also said we need a long-term strategy. We want something which is resilient to political change. And this is going to be hard for the government to do, I think, but I think they do need to sit down and talk to the opposition and try to give us something which is long-term, 10 years or so, because we need that stability to be able to get research out into commercial application, and you don't want to keep chopping and changing too much over time. So the settlement you've got with the spending review, I think, was quite good. I think better than what we could have expected for the university sector. Now we need to sort of work around that and try and make sure the long-term strategy is set out, works with you and works with business. As I keep on saying, works with business, one of the things we're playing back to government is that fundamentally innovation is a business-to-business contact sport. If we're talking at it in terms of pounds, shillings and pence, the government puts about 11 billion into research and innovation each year. And this is through everything that it does. This is through MOD spending on research and innovation, it's through civil spending, it's through HEFI, it's through Technology Strategy Board, it's through the research councils. That even includes the R&D tax credit, £11 billion a year. Business spending on research and innovation within the UK is around £211 billion a year. So there is a huge scale difference between what business puts in and what government puts in. That's not to undermine what government can do. Government does have a major multiplier effect. It's that sort of the activating mosquito in the mix that gets things going and push things forward. It just has to work out where it can do that best rather than trying to spread its money too thin. We need to make sure that we build on all of the things that we do well. So when we talk about research and innovation strategy, I've been very pleased that David Willis has already said this. He wants to look beyond the sort of levers in terms of science-based funding, but also look at things like regulation and addressing other blockers across government that stops businesses from innovating. There's a lot we can do, a lot we can benefit from. If we can get regulations and standards that the companies in this country are comfortable with out there in places like China and Brazil, then that gives us a running head start in terms of being able to tap into those markets in the future. In particular, we think we need to maximise rather more from public procurement. This is £250 billion of spending each year by the government on goods and services in the UK. £250 billion compared to 11 billion on research and innovation. The scale is fantastic. So if that 11 billion is the government pushing effectively research and innovation, trying to get more activity out there in the university sector, then that £250 billion will pull research and innovation, will pull activity for a business to get the economy going. But we don't have a very effective system at the moment. I keep hearing of lovely little one-off pilot exercises where the government has used public procurement to purchase innovation, but they tend to be the same examples again and again, like innovative procurement of mattresses for prisons and things like that. I hear the same things numerous times. We need to do much more than that. It has to be an end-to-end system where the future needs of public procurement to signal early to industry and the research base, focus firmly on outcomes and whole life value, not just on lowest upfront costs. And I think if we engage the university sector with the business sector in thinking about innovative solutions, we could transform how that £250 billion is spent, and in the process, build new capabilities in the UK, strengthen our export base, create customers overseas as well. Right, so where are we going wrong at the moment? Well, I would say we don't have enough focus on building a critical mass of activity in the UK. We do tend to spread our funding and effort far too thinly. And this does mean that there are some difficult choices ahead, because I do think we do need to do a little bit more prioritisation. We need to understand where there's value chain potential in the UK and then really target that. So one of the things that we're really supportive of is the innovation and growth team on university work in the past, over the last few years, where we have public sector, private sector, universities all working together to build strategic roadmaps for the future, working out where the UK can best fit into that, and then putting some effort behind that so that we are ahead of the game rather than always playing catch up. Of course, the challenge is every sector wants one of those, and if we have every sector doing one of those, then we're probably not going to be enough money to spread around. But we have to start somewhere. I think that's been a very successful model, particularly on the automotive side. Other sectors can do that as well. I suppose one thing I'd say though on that is that my understanding is there hasn't been as much university engagement in that innovation and growth team work as there could be. And I'd like to see a lot more in the future. And that does come down to you pushing for that to be in there. Right, Technology Strategy Board, I forgot to mention them. We love the Technology Strategy Board and the CPI. We pressed for them to be introduced a long time ago. We've always been disappointed by the amount of funding they've got. We reckon it should be at least doubled, but conditions are tight in terms of government spending. So if you can't increase the money, then something else has to give. They've already been given, I think, far too much to do. They've rolled in grants for R&D from the RDAs as they disappeared. They're now being tasked with setting up technology innovation centres, doing lots of other things too. So if you can't increase the funding, then we're going to urge government to look again at some of the priorities that TSB focuses on. And maybe they're going to have some hard decisions to make in terms of what they do to make sure that the UK can put a critical mass of funding behind particular areas of activity.